welcome everyone. Today's topic for CS Office Hours is ChatGPT3. How do we use it to be more effective in our CS roles, whether we're leaders or CSMs, or in our job search, if we're switching CS jobs, if we're transitioning into CS. There's lots of great ways you can use ChatGPT3, and thought we'd sort of dig into that a little bit and also maybe answer the question of what the heck is it, right? So first thing I want to do is I want everybody on their own to just, I'm going to put this over in the chat. Go and click on this link. I'm going to share this. Click on that link and tell me, what do you think it has to do with ChatGPT3? Any thoughts? You can come off mute, put it in the chat. What do you think this has to do with?
Jan, the link's not working directly, so I think we have to copy paste it just to let everybody know.
Oh, really? You have to copy paste it? Okay, well then copy paste it. But what do you think this has to do with ChatGPT3?
It's probably going to track how popular, where on the screen people are clicking, what their choice is.
Okay. Anybody else have an idea of what it has to do with ChatGPT3?
Did you have it? Oh.
Here, why don't I'll share what it actually is. We'll look at it for a second. Gosh darn it.
Did you have it generate the messages from the fortune cookies?
There you go. Yep. So here, let me just go to it for a second. And I'll share what it is so you can see. So here you are, right? Your customer will think they have found a bug, but it's just user error, right? Go back. Anyway, so this is a fun thing that Brandon did. And Brandon, do you want to mention kind of like, so here's the prompt, right? So Brandon, do you want to talk through kind of how you use this?
Yeah, this is just a really simple example of some of the things that you can leverage. Obviously, this is not something that most of us will do. We're not going to be sitting in our day-to-day work and generating fortune cookies for our employers. I mean, maybe some of you do that, and that's an awesome job. Let me know if you're hiring.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
You want that job, right?
Senior fortune cookie creator is my role. But I run CS Insider, so we do a lot of kind of creative work in regards to different articles and resources. And this is one project that we wanted to do as a fun kind of just a fun little interactive exercise with our subscriber base, which is going out in tomorrow's email. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I need to figure out what I can add for slogans in these fortune cookies. And the prompt I gave ChatGPT was, hey, write me 30 fortune cookie predictions for CSMs that are snarky and funny. And it just generated a bunch of them. And I took the ones I liked the most and just pasted them in there. So what would have done, the big idea here is what work that would have done probably like an hour took me less than 10 minutes, right? So like a lot of, I did tweak them. It wasn't like I just took them blindly and pasted them. I did a little tweaking, but it was a great jump start for the creative juices in like a project like this. Again, not saying you're going to be generating fortune cookies, but just as an example.
Okay, so if you haven't met Brandon before, Brandon is had the initial idea for CS Insider. He's a co-founder of CS Insider, and he kind of corrals a group of volunteers every week into putting together information about CS, right? And so especially if you're transitioning into CS or if you're looking for jobs, things like that, there's a lot of information that he gathers every week. And so he's been using AI and ChatGPT3 for a long time, and so, or since the beginning for ChatGPT3, but AI in lots of different ways, because he loves sort of digging into all kinds of tools, things like that. So that's how we came up with the idea for today's session. And then Josh Schachter is here. You might know him from Update AI, and you can get a pretty good idea from the name of his company, AI, that he's been pretty involved in using AI and stuff like that too. So he's got some thoughts on this. And so we're going to sort of set you up with the topic here. Then you're going to go out into breakout groups where we're going to prompt you for a couple of questions to think about. And then we'll come back and share ideas and resources and things like that when we all come together. Okay. And yes, you will get the link to these slides is in the CS Office Hours Slack channel. So yes, you have all these resources here. Let's just jump in. So one other thing, just wanted to kind of share with you just a few slides. One is, why should you pay attention to AI? What, like, maybe it's just a gimmick. Maybe it's just a fad. Maybe I shouldn't like pay attention yet. But if you take a look at it, everyone's using Spotify. It took 150 days for Spotify to get to 1 million users. All you folks on Instagram, it took 75 days to get to 1 million users for Instagram. These are really impressive numbers to get to 1 million users, right? This is what we're all talking about. Like, you want to launch a platform like Instagram, like Spotify, right? Take a look at ChatGPT3 or ChatGPT3 is just because it's the third version. It's finally really usable. But anyway, this is 5 days in. 5 days in, 1 million users. Why is that? Should it scare you? Or should it excite you?
Yes.
Or is it just interesting? You can be in any of those directions. Hopefully not in the scared bucket. If you're scared, then hopefully by the end of this session today, you won't be so scared, okay? All right. All right, so these are some of the questions we're going to chat about, but maybe now I'm just going to come off of the slides and we'll come back to seeing each other. Where am I? Stop share. There we go. Okay, so what is ChatGPT3? And what is generative AI? Because you're going to hear that term a lot too. Brandon or Josh, do you want to kick off either one of those top ideas?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. So first of all, generative AI is in comparison to extractive AI. And in an extractive world, you're basically taking parts of a text that already exist and you're looking for that, right? So if you're looking through a transcript and you're looking for a moment of risk, for instance, maybe you have a keyword set that you're looking for and you're going to that transcript and you're extracting where you find those moments of risk, those keywords that come up. That's not what ChatGPT does or what GPT does. It's generating its own language, right? It's generating its own verbiage from scratch. So it's actually reading through whatever it might be, if it's a transcript, if it's emails, whatever the case is, or if you give it a prompt, and it's not taking stuff that already exists, it's generating that all from scratch and coming up with its own words. So that's kind of the baseline definition of that. Jan, the other question was just kind of what is ChatGPT?
Yeah, so what is ChatGPT3? And does that make sense what Josh just said? Just like generative AI, how does it work? Okay, I'm getting a couple nodded. And if you have a question, feel free to put it over in the chat as we're trying to sort of explain it. We want to make certain everybody starts at least with the same sort of base level information here. So yeah, so now let's dig into ChatGPT3.
So ChatGPT is from a company called OpenAI. The founder of that company is very successful in the Silicon Valley world. He was actually the founder of Y Combinator, which has had many, many successful companies come out of it. His name is Sam Altman. So this isn't his first rodeo. It's heavily invested now by Microsoft. They're actually Azure, right, which is their infrastructure system, is laying the pipes and the foundation for OpenAI's GPT. So they have a major investment. This is a huge strategic deal for them, which is, many people believe going to help them kind of get up to the right playing field with Google and people who have kind of surpassed them in recent years. But in any case, OpenAI has been working on this GPT modeling, and I don't know what GPT stands for. Actually, Sergey is the head of data science at our company. He's on the call. Sergey, do you know what GPT stands for? I think you might.
Yeah, it stands for Generative Pre-Transformer.
Okay.
Generative, what prompt? Is it
Generative Pre-Trained Transformer.
pre-train?
Pre-trained Transformer. Hi, everyone.
Generative pre-trained transformer?
Exactly.
So transformers, it's a very technical thing. We won't go into that model, into that definition, but basically these guys have been working on it since 2017. GPT-1 came out, and it was NLP, which is natural language processing, and it was based on the equivalent of about 7,000 books, that was fed into it to create its AI machine learning. GPT-2 came out a couple of years later. 3 came out, I believe it was last year, and that was equivalent to about 800,000 novels of knowledge that are input into its brain. They also introduced supervision into it, so humans behind the scenes were helping to learn and teach it to get stronger and more intelligent over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, but what does it do?
Right.
Yeah.
It does anything. Think about it as a dictionary. It's based on all the knowledge in the internet, and think of it similar as you would think of Google. Google is extractive. You type in a search term and it looks stuff up. GPT, you type in a search term, you type in something, and it looks from its knowledge base on the internet, and it generates that information for you.
Right.
I just call it it's a very powerful chatbot, ChatGPT, right? Think of a chatbot and you go to a website for like a support center. It's going to give you very kind of like canned responses based off of your question, right? ChatGPT is kind of has a lot more kind of intelligence and understands, can infer what you're asking it because it was built on this like natural language processing, and it can give you information back based off of the prompt that you give it. So it's very smart because it's learned over time kind of how we communicate as humans and can interpret that and respond back with rich information. When I say rich information, I don't mean images or video, although that could be coming in the future, more so text-based responses right now. And Sergey, if I say anything incorrect, because now I'm really with an expert, I am not the technical expert, so I might be incorrect on some of the terms I'm using, but that's my understanding. And I think it's really powerful and exciting from my perspective. Question, who here has gone to ChatGPT and used it? Raise your hand. I'm just curious.
Or go down to reactions and hit on reactions, and you can raise your hand if you've used ChatGPT3. Okay, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really just stringing words together in a meaningful way based off of what information you're giving it.
All right. And you can lower your hand now. Just go back down to reactions and lower your hand. So probably about half of you have used it. So the other thing to remember though about if you're using specifically ChatGPT, you want to remember that it's been trained on data from the internet up to 2021. So if something happened in the world in 2022 or this far into 2023, it doesn't exist in the world of ChatGPT3. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is
Baby, is it on now?
Neha, can you? I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Okay. So something to keep in mind though is that it otherwise is trained on a lot of data. Now the other thing about the internet is they've also tried to do some controls against it, so it's not going to return I don't know, basically a bunch of racist and sexist stuff, basically. But it's not going to be perfect either. Like you can ask it a question to like return information to you, and it either may not be up to date or it just may not be perfect information. So it's always important to use it in a way where you're sort of testing to see like, is that accurate data? Is that actually something that I want to use? Right. So I just want to give you that. Otherwise, though, you can turn out, some pretty good drafts of information, right, that can help you save a lot of time. And there's a lot of different ways. And so we'll show you some examples of how it's been used. And let me go ahead and share slide again. And because will all be in the link for the slides. So here are some examples. So one thing is, and I have a link to the article below, but I asked it to explain 3 best practices for a CS leader to communicate effectively with their CEO and CFO. And I used that for the bulk of my blog post that I posted on the Success League. But I added sort of an intro to it and said this, and explained that I was asking ChatGPT. And then I added at the end, and this is what it didn't tell me, right? So I gave a little bit of context. So that's one thing. Now, Josh, do you want to walk us through kind of this next kind of example?
Sure. So, in this example here, level 2, we try to get a little bit more sophisticated where, so in Jan's example, she was taking as her input just everything that ChatGPT knew about CEOs and CFOs and CS from the internet. In this example, what we can do is we can feed in a transcript from a recent call that you might have had with a customer, and you can ask ChatGPT, show me all of the opportunities that you found in that transcript. And it could be opportunities, it could be risks, it could be different types of things. If you're pretty broad like that, you'll get kind of a broad answer. So it's a little bit of garbage in, garbage out. So that prompt right there, I'd say that example is just not optimized. But by getting more refined, you'll get more intelligent responses that are tailored to what you're looking for. Like the good example where it's asking, where you're specifying customer success manager, you're telling ChatGPT who the CSM is, who the client is, so it knows in the transcript who is who. It'll be much more accurate.
Okay.
Can I just jump in, Jen, real quick? And I don't want to jump ahead, but I think
Yeah.
this is kind of like, it all starts with the prompt. When you go to ChatGPT, you're giving it something to go off of or start, right? And so what some of you might have been like, well, I asked ChatGPT a question about what should CSMs do like in their daily work to be successful, and it gave me like a generic answer. That's because the prompt was pretty generic, right? The value of ChatGPT comes from giving it detail and context and helping you extract meaning or information, understanding from that context. And that's one thing you can do with feeding it a bunch of like a transcript. Hey, here's a transcript. Help me understand X, Y, and Z and what my next action item should be with this additional detail about this customer, whatever. The more you give it, the more helpful it can become. That is one big part of it. And the other big part is helping you be more creative and helping start, like launch your ideas for really anything, whether it's creating an article and you're trying to think of ideas for the article, giving you feedback on something. And this is what Jan is showing. And I don't want to stop me, Jana, from going too far ahead, but like, just think of it.
I want you to jump into this. Yeah. Because we
Okay.
want to get people to breakout rooms right after we answer Kim's question.
I think of it as 3 things, although I'm probably missing a lot. One is the make meaning out of this text based off of this information and what I'm trying to achieve. 2 is help me be more creative and think of ideas for X, whether it's I want you to act as this role, and I'm trying to generate this thing. Here's some information. What are some ideas you can give? Whether it's an article idea, email, subject lines, general next steps. And then 3 is help me practice. And this is this example, acting as someone and having a conversation with me. You can have ChatGPT act as whatever role that will be most helpful for you. So for example, and this is really, really fast, the prompt I gave it. So this is not like I would say a great example. This is when I first started using ChatGPT, like, hey, I'm coming, there's an interview coming up and I need to practice my answers. I want you to act as this interviewer asking me questions, and I'm going to give you an answer, and I want you to give me feedback on my answer. And so it asked me, I gave it an answer to the question about describe a time when you had to navigate a difficult customer situation and how you approached it. I gave my answer, and then it gave me some feedback, and I was like, okay, that feedback's kind of generic. The great thing about ChatGPT is you can dig into, you can continue the conversation with it. It's not just a question and answer, it's a kind of conversation back and forth. So then I said, well, what else, what should I have done differently? What would you say I should do next time based off this answer to be even better? And then it gave me actually helpful information about from my response. You can't really read it here, but it pointed out some
but you have the
flaws.
link to this, so don't worry about reading it here. You can read this later. It's more
So
about
this,
the process of going back and forth with it.
yeah, so this prompt, the ChatGPT is acting, the role it's acting as is interviewer, right? But it could be coach. It could be a client that you want to have a practice having a conversation with. You know, whatever it is, you can give it a role and parameters to operate under that role, and then start to engage with it in a meaningful way.
Okay, so we're going to go to breakout rooms right after we finish this conversation, and we'll put this over in the chat, the link here for it, because you want to keep some notes. But Kimberly, what were your questions here?
Yeah, thanks. That was somewhat helpful. I think I was getting confused because I was thinking back to your original distinction between generative AI and extracted AI, and thinking that ChatGPT can't extract. And it sounds like maybe it can't extract, but it can actually learn. Because I mean, I'm certainly clear that, like, yes, it can spit out things, but like that second example you gave, I can't even remember it now, but the second example you gave, I mean, it had to basically, you know, learn from what you had shared. And so I guess that's kind of a two-parter. But first is just if you could clarify how it can learn if it's not extracting. And then the second question is, does that mean, like, going off of your third example there, like if I had a document of like my current policies or something, like something that's post 2021, could I post that in ChatGPT and then say, you know, now that you've read this, you know, help me answer this question to my student or something, you know, like, I guess I'm confused about how ChatGPT learns. Yes.
Okay, can we maybe talk about that when we come back? Because that doesn't really prevent us from using it right now. We can dig into like how it works and learns a little later. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna break everybody into groups. And if I can find breakout rooms. All right, and I'm going to create 15 breakout rooms. So we have small groups. You're going to go away for 15 minutes. So the lightning round where you introduce yourself is really lightning. All right. And be sure you can always share LinkedIn and connect afterwards, but do a lightning round of introductions and then dig into the questions. And you can always talk about, you know, kind of how you connect with it as you go, right? But take that link. Does everybody have a link to the document? Keep track of which group you're in. And then when we come back, we want to hear from folks. Okay, is that cool? Hey, so people are starting to come back from the breakout rooms. I see a lot of people took notes. Not everybody took notes. I tried to prompt with the question notes for folks, but that's okay if you didn't have anything you really want to record. That's okay. But how did things go? Oh wait, and let me bring Brandon back up here. And and I wanted to just mention, I know that we have we also have Ron from Churn Zero here. So Ron, do you want to maybe just share what Churn Zero is doing with ChatGPT and all of that?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously don't want it to be a sales pitch. I'll drop the link in the chat, but we have a tool built in that's built on the same technology of ChatGPT. It's just specifically tailored to customer success. So our data set is a bit more tailored. It's up to date. And we rolled out a free version for everyone. And then we have it baked into our platform. But the elegance of it, like I worked with a customer and built out a workflow where basically we built a survey campaign. and then built the playbook to follow up on that survey campaign for each response. So if a customer says, hey, we're churning because of price, let's build the whole workflow and strategy. And instead of that being like an all-day thing, we knocked it out in an hour. And she was like, that's pretty cool. And I was like, yeah.
And so yeah, so that's the thing, right? Like, so the ChatGPT API is being incorporated into various tools. And so you'll see how then when it's working off of your data set, it can be more powerful than if it's just working off of anonymous internet data, right? Josh, are you also using the API in Update AI?
Yeah, we're using the API as
And
well.
so how are you using it then?
So, I mean, our mission is to unburden calls with customers. So specifically our use case is, if this was your question, Jen, I'm not sure if
Yeah.
okay, is to help eliminate note-taking, simply put, of calls with customers. So to give you the quick one paragraph summary, actually we put it into bullets because that's more readable, and to summarize all the action items and all the risk moments, and anytime a key number came up, because usually when numbers come up, that's important. And so that you can just stay fully present in the conversation, not have your pen and paper down. And the nice thing about ChatGPT or GPT is that it's so accurate that you can actually do those things now. Whereas before, like, with previous solutions, it wasn't quite the case. And then we want to help you push that information to Salesforce or to your manager or to your team or even back to your client. So that's the goal, is to save time and summarize calls with customers. And then our longer vision is to map all the key moments you have with a customer over time. So imagine like a canvas of all of like the key things that they've told you.
So that's how you'll start to see it incorporated into tools, right? Is where it can actually then be trained on, a particular data set, right? And so then what kinds of ideas did you come up with when you were out in your breakout rooms? Was there anything that somebody wants to share? I saw some in the notes. What kinds of things? Is there something like a new idea that anybody said, oh, I hadn't thought of that?
So I've actually used it before, Jan, to build a success plan, to evaluate whether it's a good success plan, and to actually make alterations to that success plan based off of ChatGPT's feedback. And
well,
then
does ChatGPT actually put in like the SMART goals for you?
So yeah, so this is by the way, I'm with Josh at Update AI.
Oh, okay.
And I come from CS operations.
Okay.
So one thing to keep in mind is that ChatGPT is really good.
Wait, somebody's in the background here.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
ChatGPT is good at big established concepts, and success plans are really well defined and established in the internet. So it knows in the context of customer success what a success plan is. So I actually fed it a real world example of a success plan from one of Update AI's customers. And I asked it to evaluate it 1 through 100, 100 being the best. It gave me a score of 80. I asked it to give me the reasoning of why it gave me an 80 and not a 100. And it told me a couple of things. It said, hey, your measurement criteria is not specific enough. And then there was a couple of areas where there wasn't a number tied to that success criteria. It also gave me some feedback on the timeline wasn't defined well enough. So then I went and changed those success measurement criteria. I changed the timeline criteria. I asked it to reevaluate, and it moved my score from 80 to 100. And then I even asked it to tell me what I changed. And it told me specifically, bullet, what I changed about the success plan. And I think that's really exciting for all of you in the room and customer success managers out there. As you're building success plans, you can get really rapid coaching on, is this a good success plan? And what do I need to change to make it better?
Wow, you're going to put coaches out of business. I love that. What other thoughts or ideas did people come up with?
I did a webinar on this, and as I've been talking with people, I found that there's like the strategy and the ideation, which is more for like CS leaders. And there's been a lot of clamor for like, I'm a CSM, individual contributor. How do I use this thing? What are some simple things that I can do? And like, I'm a rep, I'm an AE, I know maybe the enemy, but like, my simplest use case is reply to this email. A customer sends me an email and you got a million things on your plate. Sometimes you sit there for 15 minutes, like, what the heck do I say to this person? Plug it in, reply to this email, and copy and paste the email. It'll spit something out. Depending on the tool, you can say, hey, I'm feeling sassy today. Make this email response sassier, or make it friendlier, or change the tone, or add my calendar link, and then you can copy and paste the link. Or if one thing that I've done that saves a lot of time is you can say, write me this email, and then tell it, write me a follow-up email as well. And then I'll send that initial email, and then I'll send a reply later and say, hey, send this follow-up next week if I don't get a response, and then put in the follow-up email. So now the first email is sent, the second email is sent, I go on about my day, and I know that follow-up is there.
And just to also, if you want to have your email be structured in a way that drives action, like this customer has been unresponsive, I need to think about like a new way to engage them. You can say, use this framework, create a sense of unease, a vision of a better state, and a belief we can get there in this email. Like, use this structure in writing this email in a casual tone. It will take that framework, whatever framework you think is going to drive action, that mental model, and it's going to kind of generate the email around that framework. So like, you can feed it best practices. You can be specific. I want to use like marketing examples, like this call to action, this type of call to action, whatever it is, you can feed it that and it will generate it.
Awesome. Awesome. What other, okay, Kimberly, hey.
Yeah, I just had an example. Let's see, actually, let me put it in the chat. I asked ChatGPT to help me write a cover letter. And I just made a Google Doc that showed the prompts that I did. So basically I took like my resume and fed it and said, I was actually really interesting because I said, read this resume, and I copied I cut and pasted. And then I said, read this job description, and I cut and pasted it. And I actually meant to add a line and write me a cover letter, but before I did, I pressed enter by accident, and it gave me this whole other like counseling advice, kind of being like, yeah, it sounds like you have this great experience, and like based on this role, you might be a good fit, and here's some things to keep in mind. And then I followed up and said, write me a cover letter for this position, and then it drafted one. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I just copied everything they sent me back and what I shared with them for the prompt in the Google Doc there, and I put it in the bigger doc.
Cool. All right, and I just put that over in the Slack thread, and I copied over in the chat for folks if you want to get over in the Slack. So what other thoughts? What other ways? Yeah, Marianne?
I was saying in my group, I actually pasted a bunch of stuff that we chatted about and things that I wrote up myself. One good way that I used it during my interview process was I would copy the job posting and then say, act like an interviewer for this specific job and ask me questions related to this position. And it would spit out for some like really good questions that I think helped for different positions. I'm trying to see what else I wrote in there. There are so many fun ways you can use it. And one of the things we were talking about was, hold on. You can ask it to explain things like a 5-year-old. It's you should say like, explain to me like I'm a 5-year-old. If it's a really complex topic or something, I work with Salesforce, and a lot of the stuff is like the developer stuff is way over my head because I'm not a developer, and it will explain it in a way that makes it very easy to understand. So if you have some sort of article or something and you want them to explain it in just a language where it makes it more understandable and relatable, you can use it for that. There are so many amazing things you can do.
Awesome. Awesome. Julia, I know you've been doing some stuff. You got published in an article recently talking about AI, right?
Yeah.
Well, tell us about that and tell us whatever idea you had too.
Okay. It's a little bit different. Like my friend and I got into MIT Tech Review, and that was more so for Midjourney, which was like image generation and some of the training models of what was included and what was like not included on it, kind of from like a women's health angle. But I think that's kind of like a caveat with all of this stuff, right? Like, the input equals the output. And so they will mirror certain biases. And so you always have to double check the answers that they spit out. But I was going to say, you know, I'm not a customer success manager yet, but I know research is like a big component of it. And it can really save you a ton of time if you're trying to understand, you know, your customer's business model, their industry, like, you know, put some potential things that might matter the most to them or like their metrics. And then also like when you're prompting, you can write specific code. So instead of just asking like a question, you can have it, you know, it's already pre-trained on the internet basically, but you can input specific information. So if you have a bunch of like pre-written emails from a certain customer or, you know, just anything written by the customer, you can input all of it and you can essentially have it adopt the persona of that customer, right in the style of that customer, and then almost brainstorm in some way to almost be like a predictive analytics version of like how that customer could potentially react. But I think it's like great for brainstorming. And I think it's good for potentially, I mean, it's not like true predictive modeling, but I think it's like better than what we had access to before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's amazing. It's great. What any other last thoughts to share? What, and we can hear from somebody while I just share with you. I'm going to show you the LinkedIn. There is a customer success hours, office hours LinkedIn group. The reason why is then you'll be able to see, because that's where I post. I post what the topics are for each week in here. So then you'll know what's coming ahead, all right? Just so you can see that, whoops. Just so you can see that. Sorry, there you go. And I'll post in here what the topics are each week. That's a reason to join and get that there. Any last closing thoughts on this, Josh or Brandon? Or both? Got 2 minutes here. Woohoo!
Exciting times.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'll say my primary use case, I shared this with my breakout group, for me personally, is I consider myself a pretty strong writer, but it takes me way too long to write. I like mull over words. And I also find myself being like too verbose. And with that word being said, I also sometimes use words that are like higher level than like I should. So I'll just kind of, I use it now just to like write more flow of consciousness, knowing that the grammar is going to be wrong, it might not be written perfectly. And as a colleague, Nikki, you're confirming that I write too long and I'm too verbose. Thank you. Okay. At least I can spell though. No. But anyway, so I'll write very quickly and then I'll ask ChatGPT to like make it more succinct. And it's like that Mark Twain thing. Like if I had more time, I would have written less. So
Yes,
that's how
yes.
I love using ChatGPT personally.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, I fall into that category too. So I think perhaps I should be using it more often. So look, this is fantastic that everybody came out to, you know, share what your knowledge and to also learn, you know, something today. So really appreciate you all coming out, and especially it's what's in the middle of the day for some of you and later in the evening for others. So, you know, continue to share over here in the Slack channel. It's not enough to really dig into everything, and you know, continue to you know, just share ideas and answer questions, ask questions. I mean, that's what we want to try and do for each other here, is be resources to each other, and also you know, just connect with folks and learn more from each other about CS and AI and all the tools out there and all that stuff. So awesome. Thanks so much, folks. It was great to see everybody.
Everybody, have a great week.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.